Hey guys, hey Lodi.
Hey Kaylin.
Today we're going to be talking about some themes in our books.
The book that I read was called Secret Society by Tom Dolby, and I recommend this book to teens and some adults because it's about a secret society that recruits rich and well-known people but makes them more well-known and helps them get into good schools. And there's a reason that it's called Secret Society, and that's because they have a secret themselves. The secret is that the teens find out that there's a dead body at the end of the book, and this person that was killed was part of the secret society once, which tells us that there's something bad going on that could happen to these teens that have been recruited. And basically, the book shows us how it's basically mystery, so you have to try to figure out why there's a dead body.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to read that. The book that I read was Blue Bloods by Melissa De La Cruz. If you've ever seen Gossip Girl, it's like the rich part of Manhattan, and it's a group of people that there's three different groups of people, types of people, which are blue bloods, red bloods, and silver bloods. Blue bloods are vampires. Red bloods are humans, and silver bloods are vampires who feed on vampires. These different groups, there's this society, or like just an ancient group, where you join if you're a vampire, and basically what you do is you find out about your history and about your past, and how you use your powers, which I think is really cool. I love vampires. I love the whole mystery. And
So, would you say that this is completely different from a movie like Twilight?
yes, in some aspects. Some of their powers are different. Some of the vampire folklore or myths that you find in this book won't be the same as what you find in Twilight. It's different, but it's good. Like I like the two different ways to see vampires.
Good enough.
Yeah, I recommend this to teens, if adults maybe, but mostly teens.
So let's talk about the themes. The first theme we found was friendship.
Friendship, in our opinion, is a powerful bond between two or more people that has grown throughout love, trust, and just always being there for that person.
So, one quote that I found was shown on page 22 and 23, where it says, "Sometimes Nick didn't know what he would do without his friend." This shows us the theme of friendship because you know that there's a bond between these two characters, Nick and Patchfield. It tells us that Nick needs Patch and is very grateful to have him as a best friend, and it also shows us that their friendship has been growing through time.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see the powerful bond. A quote that I found was on page 9 was, "The two of them had been friends ever since the second grade, when Skylar's nanny forgot to pack her lunch one day, and Oliver had given her half a lettuce and mayo sandwich." This shows the theme of friendship because Oliver, even though it's the second grade, Oliver didn't have to give her a sandwich, half of his sandwich, but he did out of kindness. He didn't know her, but he did it, and then ever since then they became best friends, and for like many years. So
That's good. Yeah. The second quote I found was on page 61, and it says, "She couldn't help it. Maybe she was so old-fashioned, but there was something about Nick that she trusted. She could see that beneath it there was something deeper." This shows us how friendship starts. Friendship starts with trust, and it progresses as your trust does. It's when someone sees something more or deeper beneath your look, just like Phoebe saw something more beneath Nick's look.
another quote I found was on page 243. Skylar pulled Oliver close and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for loving me enough to let me go." Skylar never was in love with Oliver. Oliver and Skylar are best friends. Skylar could also be pronounced as Schuler, but it's mainly Skylar. That's what they joke about in the book. Skylar, he fell in love with Skylar after a long time of being friends with her, and he just told her about it like 9 years later. And the thing is, he didn't let her go as loving her, as being in love with her. He let her go as a best friend. He took that part away from him, and he's like, feelings aside, you're my best friend. You've always been my best friend. I'm going to let you go now. Bless you.
Thank you.
So this quote shows friendship because even though she is saying this, thinking he still loves her, he's letting her go as a friend because he knows how she feels about him. It's only platonic between her and him. That's all it's ever going to be. So it was really nice that he was to be the friend to let her go off with another guy.
So the next thing we found was loyalty. Loyalty is when you are supportive, faithful, honest, reliable, trustworthy, and sincere to someone else in any situation in that you wouldn't leave them.
In my book, loyalty is seen on page 146. The quote says, "There was some kind of hypnotic essence in the process that made them insomniac, the loyal to the Blue Bloods." Here, it shows that humans are loyal to the Blue Bloods because they have no choice. Blue Bloods the vampires have this power that they can control a human by compulsion. So that is basically what is going on in here. They are only loyal because they have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be loyal if they knew who they actually were.
So who has the most freedom out of the three?
And three, I'd probably say Silverbloods because they have a way of, they're like the Dark Angels. They have a way of controlling Blue Bloods.
So why couldn't it be the humans?
Because they don't have any freedom at all. They're being compelled by either Blue Bloods or Silver Bloods to do whatever they want them to do.
Mm-hmm. So the second quote from my book was found on page 30 and says, "What's wrong? Nothing," Nick said, quickly hoping Patch hadn't seen the message. He felt terrible lying to his best friend, but he had no choice. This shows Nick being loyal to the secret society because even though Patch is his best friend and he lied to him, he was more loyal to the secret society than to his best friend because he was forced to. Because if he said something to his best friend about the secret society, they would find out and they would kick him out and he wouldn't be able to be successful.
Wow. The second quote that I found was loyalty was on page 166. "Taking a red blood without his or her consent was also against the code." This quote goes against my last quote, because even though they can't control them, they still do it anyways for their own enjoyment. It's bad because the code, the society is telling them not to do it, but they're going to do it anyways. So it kind of doesn't really make sense.
So
they just don't get caught.
They don't get caught, but they do the wrong thing.
Do the wrong thing because it's what they want to do, and they feel like they have the most power. So if a Blue Blood vampire didn't respect the code of the ancient Blue Bloods, then that would be considered disloyalty. It is very important for someone to follow the code and be loyal, to stay in the group, to stay in the ancient cult, and learn about their powers and be with other vampires like them.
So the second quote I found was on page 66. "A deep tiredness had come over her since she had received the text. She texted Chloe to say she wasn't feeling well, that she was going to stay home. She was lying." This is similar to the previous quote from my book because Now, Phoebe is being disloyal to her best friend Chloe, but is being loyal to the secret society, again because she is forced to. So the same thing would happen to her, and even though she's not loyal to Chloe, she is loyal to the secret society, so she won't get kicked out.
Interesting. Kind of seems like intense.
Yeah. The third theme we found was secrecy. Secrecy is when someone has the ability to keep a secret and stay apart from someone who is close to you, being secret or hidden and mysterious.
The first quote that I found for secrecy was, "There is nothing to worry about. You are safe here, for we are all the same. It is all part of the cycle of expression. You are the newest Blue Bloods. Today is your induction into your secret history. Welcome to your new life." This was on page 143. Here you can tell that there is secrecy in the Vampire Club because they can't tell anyone about their powers. They have to keep everything hidden, and this is a cash club because it's hidden, and what's so cool about it is you can't find it unless you are a vampire yourself.
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. So the second quote I found, well, the first quote for this theme was found on page 172. And then she realized, perhaps at the same time as he did, that the missing works were all the ones that contained his mysterious pictures. This tells us that Patch, who is Nick's best friend, he didn't get the message to be part of the society, but because he wants to be a filmmaker, he takes his camera wherever he goes, and just takes pictures of everything, so he can be successful without the society, so by himself. But Phoebe finds out that it's his pictures because they're so familiar to her, and this shows secrecy because he kept it a secret from her, so no one would find out about it, but she found it.
The second quote I found for secrecy was, "The papers they signed to join were also their commitment to the Blue Blood Code. The code was like the 10 Commandments of the Blue Bloods, the laws of creation, and they were bound to its rules." This was on pages 148 through 149. And then I found another quote that says, "Every Monday they would learn more about their history as well as how to control their powers." This is on page 149. This quote shows secrecy within my book because no one was supposed to know about this ancient group unless they were vampires, and it is so hidden that only a vampire can't really take a human or a red blood into this group unless they're close and they can be trusted.
So they are allowed to be part.
They're allowed to visit. They're allowed to be guests in it. But since they're not vampires, it really has nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just if your best friend needs to know your secret, you tell them your secret because you want to stay friends with them. You bring them to this and you get them known by all your other vampire friends or the cult.
The second quote I found was on page 175, and it says, "A body was found at the base of Cleopatra's Needle in Central Park on Thanksgiving, nearly naked, but apparently untouched." So this is what I was talking about at the end of the book. This is a big secret in this book because these three kids, Phoebe, Nick, and Patch, go searching to find something about this society that makes it secret, and they found it. They found a dead body, and they were shocked because even though they wanted to find it, their parents were part of the society, so it's kind of shocking to hear that a society that murders people was the same society that your parents were in. And so this shows secrecy because the secret society was keeping it a secret from the people that were messaged to be part of this society, but it didn't work because these three kids found it.
Oh. So it's not so secret anymore.
It unravels as you read the book.
The fourth and final theme we're going to talk about is labels and stereotypes. Labels are short words or phrases that you use to describe someone or put them in a category, either mean or non-mean. It depends on who you're talking about, what you're talking about. A stereotype is a general belief about a group or a certain label.
My first quote was found on page 10. The kind of crowd they knew he could bring in, young, good-looking, with disposable income for bottle service and an appetite for VIP treatment. This is definitely stereotyping people, because people like Nick, who are famous, who are well-known and rich, people think that those types of people bring in or attract different types of rich people to the society. So that's one of the reasons why Nick was messaged to be part of the society, because he was rich. And this is stereotyping because he's basically a label now, and the descriptions mean that whoever is pretty young and rich enough to pay for VIP is important enough to be part of the society, which isn't right, because they could be rich, but they also could lack knowledge. And the people that are poor or not rich can be smarter, so they would be missing out.
So that's how they label?
Yeah.
That's interesting. On page 146, a quote that I found for labeling or stereotypes was, "The red bloods, the humans, they couldn't know." Here's one example of labeling in my book. This tells you what the red bloods are and what they're known as from a vampire's perspective, or any other person that doesn't know about the society. There are blue bloods, vampires. As I told you before, red bloods are humans, and silver bloods, vampires who feed on vampires. Those are the different types of labels that are put in my book. A second quote that I had for this was, "It had a will of its own, and growing up as a blue blood meant that you learned how to access and control the vast intelligence that was available inside of you." Page 145. This shows what the blue bloods are for, what they do, and how they control their powers. On page 299, the quote that I found was, "She thought about what her grandmother had said about the silver bloods. They were really cunning and duplicitous, and Cordelia believed that the most powerful of them all was hiding among them, disguised as a blue blood." This shows all three different types of people that I explained to you throughout my book. These are the labels and the stereotypes that are used to explain people. This is the norm. Yeah.
So my second quote was found on page 31, and it says, "Why did Nick want to be part of something like this? It was the kind of thing that said, you matter, you are worthy, and you belong." The secret society has been labeled into this stereotype that they only recruit rich people and make it seem like you become a part of it because you are rich, and because they think you're important and that the rest of the world isn't important, which is wrong. And whoever didn't get the message isn't worth it, and they're not smart enough to belong.
My second example was in the beginning of the book. The main friend group that is being focused on here were called misfits because they didn't belong, even though you could be rich and you still can't belong.
There's a difference between this theme in my book and your book, because in my book it tells us that rich people are the smart ones and the ones that can be able to get into the secret society and the important things. But in your book, it says
misfits. They're just misfits that no one knows about. They become vampires. They don't know that they're vampires right away. They become vampires throughout the book, and then they get put into this vampire club because they know about their history.
Mm-hmm. So they become important.
Yes, they become important in the club, but in school they're just misfits, and no one knows about them, which is kind of sad. But they're all friends, and misfits Just a big group of misfit friends.
What would you say would happen if because they're misfits in school and other places and vampires in the club, so no one knows they're vampires, but what would you say would happen if people found out?
I would say that the people that found out, the humans, would gather as many people as they could, get as many weapons as they could, and try to hunt these vampires down.
So they would destroy the stereotyping and the minorities because they are scared of like what's different.
Yeah.
They are scared of what's different.
That's basically what it is. The quote that I found for this was, "No one wore pastel in Manhattan or rocked white Chanel, in the fall at least. Even that weirdo goth girl, Skylar Van Allen, displayed a chic that Bliss didn't know how to match." This was on page 24, and this quote shows that labeling, they called Skylar a goth weirdo chick. That's the school term for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they label her in school, but in my previous example, she's labeled as a blue blood, which I think is kind of cool. She has two different. She's kind of like two different personalities.
So blue bloods are the powerful ones, and the ones that are important. So she's basically living a double life where in one world she's important, and the other world she's a goth weirdo that people stereotype her as.
Yes.
That is pretty weird.
Yeah, it is. This is the end of our book discussion, but we have things to say. Let's go back to our first theme. We want to like compare it in like a quick summary, and so I think our examples in our books makes the theme related to each other, because although we may not have the same book plot or theme characters, we can still make the connection that this theme brings our books closer together, even though they have nothing to do with each other.
And having similar themes, it doesn't make it more interesting, because we just found out in your last quote that the difference between our books, that makes it more interesting, because it shows us that we have the same theme but in a different situation and way.
Yeah. Surprise! That was for friendship. For loyalty, what did we say about that?
What did we say about that? Loyalty was basically the same. It was the same throughout both of our books, because it just means that you want to stay friends with the person, so you stay loyal to them, and they get that you don't lie. But the next one, secrecy.
The secrecy, and that was...
The theme of secrecy is similar.
Because we both have clubs.
We both have clubs, and we both...
They both have to be secretive, which makes our books
the same.
important.
They both have clubs, but they have different types of people in the clubs.
That's what makes it different.
Yeah.
For labels and stereotypes, we have different labels. I mean, we're both... They both are based on rich kids.
But it's reverse for you, I think.
But yeah, mine just has two different labels, like two different types of labeling.
My labels are that if you're not rich, you can't be part of the rich, and you can't become the rich and be part of the club that the rich are a part of, because they have that advantage. But in your book, it's reversed, because you can become...
Like, you can be poor
those people,
and become a vampire and be in the vampire club. You can be rich, become a vampire.
Be part of the club.
In school, you can't control that, because that is based on the bullies in school and what they think of you.
So basically, just don't judge people, because if somebody found out that goth weirdo chick was a vampire, they would be all over her. Or they would kill her, but...
Yes. I'm glad we were able to talk about our themes.
Yes.
Both
of our books were very interesting, and I'm definitely going to go home and read this.
Yeah, I'll definitely read yours. This is the end of our book discussion about some themes we both found in our books. We hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.